It is now 6:30. Let's go ahead and start our Council on the Go meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce some of the individuals that have joined us here. First, we have Mayor Pro Temp Joe Whitaker. We have Councilmember Davis. I know I saw him here somewhere. There he is back here. Councilmember Scott. Councilmember Dalla. Councilmember Scagliola and Councilmember Brown. Also with us, we have our Assistant City Manager, Charles Kelm and Brian James, and our City Manager, Dr. Brown. Thanks again for coming out here. We have several presentations. There's a lot of things going on in Schertz, and I hope that you enjoy our presentations, and we ask that we'll provide the presentations and hold your questions until all the presentations are done, and then we'll go with a question and answer session. All right, Dr. Brown, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with you tonight, and it's always a pleasure for us to be able to come out into the community and present our programs, all the things that we're working on. As the Mayor said, there is a lot going on in the city of Schertz, and as we come out of the pandemic, we're really moving forward very quickly on a lot of projects, and we're happy and pleased to be able to share some of those with you, and then also answer your questions and anything else that you would like to discuss this evening. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with our State of the City video. This is a video that we produce every year. Our public affairs folks, Linda Klepper and Devin Christensen over there, they're the ones that produce this video, and they do a fantastic job. They're always very creative with their ideas, and they really help showcase the city of Schertz. Of course, it's going to focus on the pandemic because that was sort of the main subject that we went through last year, but also it will show a lot of our accomplishments. And we'll begin with that, and then we'll move on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and show the video.
2020 in the city of Schertz started out like any other ordinary year. Much like our neighbors, we rang in the new decade with a positive outlook and a clear vision of what would be accomplished throughout the year. The Tri-County Parkway Reconstruction Project was completed in February. More improvements on Main Street were scheduled to begin in the spring, and the new elevated water storage tank in southern Schertz was set to be completed in July. Our Parks Department took us under the sea for the second annual Daddy-Daughter Dance, and as we were gearing up for the third annual Moving on Main event, our plans were sidelined with what would demand much of our attention for the rest of 2020.
For the first time in our area, a case of COVID-19 turning deadly. City and county officials confirming today a woman in her 80s died yesterday.
The team of doctors advising us have determined that it would be unsafe to allow students to gather in schools for the foreseeable future.
When it first hit the pandemic, I was looking at New York City. What's happening there? How many deaths? It was just unbelievable. The number of people that were passing away, and I knew it would hit our city, and we had to start preparing.
I think it was shock, not knowing what to expect, and then very quickly looking at what did we need to change to take care of our customers and our partners and make sure that everyone stayed safe.
Initially, we just didn't know what we were dealing with. I think that was the thing. I remember very distinctly, it was a Friday afternoon about the middle of March, and we got word that things were closing down around us, and everything was happening very, very rapidly.
As the pandemic evolved and as CDC guidelines became more clear, the city had to adapt services and programs in order to safely serve our residents and the public.
Our first concern was public safety. Our fire, police, and EMS folks to make sure that they had all the equipment and the protection that they needed, because we knew they were going to continue to operate in the community, and there was not going to be any chance for us to reduce that exposure that they had. So that was the first concern. And then we wanted to make sure that our employees were also as safe as we could be. So I think around the middle to late March, we actually closed all of our buildings, and we asked many of our folks to work remotely, those that could, and a lot of our personnel were able to work remotely. And so with the combination of the buildings being closed and our personnel and the way they were working, we were able to continue with the essential services.
With the closure of many businesses and city facilities, staff had to find ways to create a new normal and continue to provide our essential services. This meant implementing more online services and doing more business via phone and email to minimize in-person contact and slow the spread of the virus. COVID-19 impacted more than just city services. Local businesses were also forced to adjust their operations in order to survive the new normal.
Again, I think COVID reinforced lessons that we all know and have learned about change management and adaptability, and then about people being the most important thing. And I think for me, that really just helped reinforce all the core values and all of the leadership values that I've always had, and just help us provide support and service to our customers in our communities.
While some businesses had to ramp up efforts to maintain service at an unprecedented level, other businesses completely shifted their focus to manufacture PPE products that were in high demand.
Caltex is a locally headquartered company here in Schertz that primarily focuses on sealants for automotive products, and they evolved their product to focus on surface sanitation and hand sanitation. And so they were able to diversify their products and sell those across the country to car dealerships, but also provide that here locally.
In the midst of all the closures and changes, one area that was not slowed by the virus was maintenance of city infrastructure, including roadway and sidewalk projects and the reconstruction of the senior center parking lot. With less traffic on the roads, these projects were able to move forward quickly and efficiently. The city has many projects on the horizon for 2021, including an overhaul of the comprehensive land use plan, ongoing improvements and beautification on Main Street, construction of new park trails, and the continuation of the city's street preservation and maintenance program. We have also positioned ourselves to be on the forefront of the COVID vaccine distribution, as we have put in place the necessary infrastructure and equipment to be a clinic host site. The city has hosted a few vaccine clinics and plans on continuing this effort as more vaccines become available. Regardless of the challenges we all faced, 2020 was a year when the true spirit of our community shined through in the most simple and everyday actions that our residents were taking. We saw neighbors helping frontline nurses, teachers putting on drive-by parades to give students some fun and encouragement, and first responders helping to celebrate little ones' birthdays when regular festivities were unable to take place. While 2020 has changed our vision, the city is now looking through a new lens at 2021 with a fresh perspective and a renewed sense of purpose.
Our community is stronger. This pandemic, although put a kink in our lifestyle, it did make us stronger. We are going to have new norms, whatever those will be, and we will continue to thrive as a community.
We'll move on to the agenda. Our next item will be the TxDOT Road Repair Project update. This is exciting for everyone, so we're always happy to be able to do this one. And our department head, Kathy Woodley, is going to be making this presentation. She always does a fantastic job.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. Good evening, everyone. I see some familiar faces, and some of you are going to think, oh my gosh, this is the same thing that she talked about the last time we were here, and that was before COVID. These projects take an extraordinary amount of time. So some things have stayed the same, some things are changing. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I thought it was already pulled up. Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Kathy Woodley. I'm the city engineer. And what I'm going to be talking about are projects really that we're not doing here in the city of Schertz, but they're very meaningful to the city of Schertz. So, you all know we've got lots of TxDOT facilities in Schertz. I'm going to go through this really fast because I have lots and lots of slides because there's lots and lots of work going on. Some of it you haven't really seen yet, but you're fixing to see a lot of it. And it's going to be a mess for a long time. One thing I'll mention is the very top left, the FM 1103 bridge over I-35. It's done, done. I'm never going to talk about it again. But the rest of them are still in the works. So the first one is the IH-35 Operational Improvements Project, which includes some ramp reversals. So previously where there was an exit ramp, now it's an on-ramp, kind of shifts things around. They're also constructing a via park and ride where the old rest stop used to be. So that project is moving right along, $25.4 million investment, and it's currently expected to be complete in fall of this year. So that'll be nice. The next big project that's getting ready to start is the 1103 expansion. That project goes all the way from 35, from where the bridge was recently reconstructed, all the way to Rodeo Drive in Cibolo. So the first section of it is within Schertz, between 35 and Old Wiederstein Road. Just a reminder, currently it's 2 lanes with a left turn lane, and when it's done, it's going to have sidewalks on both sides, 2 lanes in each direction, left turn lane, a median, bike lanes, and there will be underground drainage and some sound attenuation walls. This project has been let. I think this isn't the updated presentation. It's been let. The bid actually came in slightly lower than TxDOT's expected cost, and so that's great news. It appears as though Hunter Industries will be doing the construction, and they should issue that contract within 30 days. It's anticipated to take about 4 years to get through that project, so that's going to be a big mess up in the more northern section of Schertz. So the 35 next project is the big one. The entire project goes from AT&T Parkway all the way up to 1103. It's actually been divided into 3 different segments, which, isn't in here. Brian Jackson, did you happen to put my updated PowerPoint on?
I updated the one that you gave me.
Okay. All right, so they broke it into 3 segments, 2 of which are funded, 1 of which is going to start fairly soon. So the first segment is from the 410 north, where 410 and 35 meet, and runs up to 3009. That one is fully funded, and construction is expected to start in 2022. The next segment is from AT&T Parkway to the 410-35 intersection. That one is fully funded and is expected to start probably in 2023. And the third section is that little piece between 3009 and 1103. That one is not funded yet. TxDOT is hoping to get some funding. The target for construction of that segment is 2024-25. So this project is the one where we'll actually have some elevated lanes and a widening of the surface lanes also. And then the segment between 3009 and 1103 is all surface lanes. Everything will be coming back down to earth, so to speak. IH10, probably for those of you who are living down here in southern Schertz, you probably use IH10. And you can see that that mess that's been happening in 1604 and closer into San Antonio has made its way to Schertz. It's not a huge mess yet, but they've only been working on the frontage roads, and it's going to start to get a little bit worse before it gets better. It'll be better in the long run for sure, but currently they're working between Graytown and Cibolo Creek. They're actually just going to continue on to Santa Clara. You probably won't notice a difference between the as they step through that length. That's a $140 million project, only the piece between Graytown and the county line or Cibolo Creek. They're adding lanes, expanding the bridges. There's minimal right-of-way acquisition required. We didn't need to move any utilities, so that's great. So a couple things to point out here. Widening additional lanes on the frontage roads and the main lanes. Also, you probably already noticed the frontage roads have been transitioned from two-way to one-way. And what's even more exciting is at 1518, there'll be traffic signals and turnaround bridges. So that's something really to look forward to. So 1518 improvements. This one I was looking at, I was kind of chuckling to myself because I said, oh my gosh, everyone's going to be kind of disappointed because it looks the same as it looked 4 years ago when I came and said, hey, there's this big project coming. So we're expanding from 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, to 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane. Also, you notice that 34-foot in the middle there. This has been designed, they've acquired the right-of-way so that in the future, if we need to add additional lanes, it can be done to the inside without having to take additional properties. They have about 97% of the right-of-way needed for the project. The remaining piece is actually along the Air Force Base. I do want to mention that it's not a battle. The Air Force isn't against this at all, but you can imagine when you're talking about the U.S. government and an Air Force Base, there's quite a bit of red tape that has to be gone through. And they're also trying to do this at the same time as some right-of-way acquisition they need from the base over on the 1604 side. So that's taking quite a bit of time. So the next steps are utility relocations. City of Schertz does have some water and wastewater lines on 1518, and we need to relocate them. Some of them will be relocated in conjunction with the construction of the project. There are a few spots where we need to move our lines ahead of the project. And so hopefully we'll actually begin construction on that within the next 6 months or so. The construction contract for the roadway improvements should be let in summer of next year. And they're anticipating a 2.5 to 3 year plus construction period. So one thing that I want to mention is that as this has taken years and years and years to develop, of course, construction costs have gone up and up and up. This project's been funded by TxDOT funds, so state funds, federal funds. City of Schertz has put in $10 million, Bear County has put in money, and we've come up short. So right now the project is, they're designing the entire thing, but we don't have enough money to build the entire thing. So what TxDOT has done and what Bear County has identified as one of their #1 priorities is go back to the MPO, the Municipal Planning Organization, who allocates federal funds for projects, and said, we need more money, this project is ready to go, please help us out. And right now, the MPO is asking for input from the citizens. So you've seen probably on the website, we've got some brochures back at the engineering table asking for folks to provide some input and vote on the project. It's highly likely that this project will win some funding from that. I understand the process on the website to give this input is a little bit hairier this year than it has been before, but if you can slog your way through it, everybody would appreciate getting a few extra votes for this project. One other thing that TechStud is working on in cooperation with the city of Schertz, this is another one that's way in the future, but we have to start looking at it now. Talking about the intersection of 3009 and 78. Everybody knows that when there's a train that comes through town, nobody gets from South Schertz to North Schertz or vice versa, especially emergency services knows that that's a big problem. So what we really need is a grade separated overpass to get over the railroad tracks and over FM 78. So we're working with TechStud to look at a feasibility study. It's very conceptual at this point, but they've actually engaged a consultant to draw up some options for what it might look like. And so I'm going through these kind of quickly because this is really, really early in the process. I don't want anyone to think, oh, that's going to look like that. But basically, we're looking at ways that we might be able to get across the railroad tracks. So with that, those are all the projects that TechStud has going in Schertz.
All right, John Noah is going to do our capital improvement plan updates.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Nowak. I'm one of the engineers in the engineering department. And one of my primary duties is to work on the various streets in our community. So that's what I'm here tonight to talk about is our streets capital improvement plan. This is a map that kind of shows what we've completed or what we have nearly complete in our community with our first kind of major effort in street rehabilitation, maintenance, and preservation. Cibolo Valley Drive is almost fully complete. We're still trying to iron out a few bugs with one of the traffic signals up there, but the roadway itself, all the roadway improvements are done, and we hope to have the signal issue resolved fairly quickly. We also completed a section of Tri-County Parkway. That's a concrete section from I-35 up to Corridor Parkway. Schertz Parkway from Live Oak south almost to the railroad tracks. That was a mill and overlay that we got done. And we did some work in the North Cliff neighborhood on Cherry Tree and in a pocket of the neighborhood where we had done some utility replacements earlier, where we rehabbed all those streets to get a new driving surface for folks to drive on. We also completed a reconstruction on part of Randolph. There was a part between Main and Exchange that was always falling apart. We completely rebuilt that. Got a lot of work lined up. Here's kind of a map showing where we're intending to work next or where we're looking to go, and where we have some ongoing projects. Excuse me. Now, some of these you may have recognized from earlier presentations. They represented the areas where we did what we call pavement preservation, where we applied a new chip seal layer on top of the streets. And those are still ongoing because we're going to go back, we're going to do some more work on those streets to smooth out the surface. A lot of residents weren't happy with the rough surface that a chip seal provides, so we're going to add another layer on top of that to smooth out that surface. So that's why they're still listed as ongoing projects. You may also notice that there's some work going on Schertz Parkway right now. and it's in the sections that we rebuilt. Unfortunately, we had some water line leaks in the section between Maskey and Live Oak that caused the soils underneath the pavement to move around a little bit, which then caused the pavement to fail. So we're replacing those damaged panels. In the piece that we did last summer, from Maskey to Woodland Oaks, there's some panels up there that cracked for whatever reason, and that job is still under warranty, so the contractor's having to replace those panels at his cost. And once those panels are all replaced, repair work is done, we're going to have a contractor come in and do what's called diamond grinding on the surface. And they'll go from Live Oak all the way up to Woodland Oaks, and that will smooth out the surface more and improve ride quality on the project. So we're expecting that to get done yet this summer. Another project that's currently underway is our pedestrian routes and bike lane project. That's the work that's going on Live Oak, installing curb gutter and sidewalks on both sides, construction of a multi-use decomposed granite trail from Schertz Parkway over to Wiederstein Road, just line up with the park there. And then we'll be also restriping to add bike lanes on each side of Savannah and Woodland Oaks. And that project is underway. The south side of Live Oak is getting close to being completed. And once the south side is complete, the contractor will jump on the north side. The pathway, the decomposed granite pathway, is about 75% complete. We're working through a couple of realignment issues with TxDOT, so we've got to get those resolved before we can finish that. We have a whole bunch of upcoming projects. Now, most of the projects on this list, on this slide, represent our next round of pavement preservation. And instead of being a chip seal on the surface, we're switching to a different product called a slurry seal, which gives a much smoother finished surface when we're done. But the process is somewhat similar. And at first, we've got to go through crack sealing, base repairs, asphalt level ups, take care of some of the defects in the streets, then we put a new surface on top that represents a new driving surface. We've got a lot of those. We also, real recently, were able to leverage some of the city funding and be able to fund construction of L-Bell from Schertz Parkway to 3009. That project is currently out for bid right now. The bid opening is scheduled for July 8th, and we hope to get that under construction as soon as possible after we have the bid opening. That project will install some new storm drain lines and add some inlets to improve drainage on L-Bell, and then it will be a mill and overlay of the entire surface. And one of the added bonuses with that project is we expanded the scope a little bit during the design process to replace the Hawk system, where the school kids across the street at Westchester, that'll become a full regular traffic signal with the project. Now, when that project gets under construction, you'll see the underground stuff done first, and that's going to take the longest time to get done. The storm drain lines extension and the inlets being added. And then you'll see the mill and overlay. The last thing that will happen will be completion of the traffic signal. And the unfortunate reason for that taking so long is there's a long lead time on that equipment. But before we put the new surface on the street, we'll get all the underground stuff done, we'll get the new conduits and everything run for the traffic signal. So once the surface is done, it'll look like Schertz Parkway between Live Oak and the railroad tracks. We also, thanks to our Economic Development Corporation, thank you, Adrian, they provided funding to reconstruct the remainder of Tri-County Parkway, pick up where we left off with the concrete pavement section and reconstruct it all the way around the corner to 3009. With that, we're also reconstructing a short piece of Lookout Road from Tri-County Parkway to Door Lane. Now, on the northern end of the project, from 3009 to Lookout Road, and then that piece of Lookout Road to Door Lane, before the road is rebuilt, we're also replacing the sanitary sewer line there. The line needs to be upsized to add capacity, so we're going to do that first and then the road project. That project is almost complete design-wise, and it'll be heading out to bid shortly. The other project that we have is one that we kind of had to push the pause button on a little bit to get some drainage issues figured out with a couple of intersections, and that's Lindbergh from Main to Curtis. The section between Main and Exchange has been in bad shape, and every time it rains, the street starts to fall apart again. We're going to rebuild that. What started out as a reconstruction for that section turned into a little bit bigger project because we couldn't do anything with the water. The grades are very, very flat, and the more we tried to address the drainage, the further we had to go. So the scope kind of grew to where we're fortunate we're able to extend some of the existing storm drain system that's down in the area, add some inlets at the intersections, but we wound up having to go all the way up to Curtis in order to get the grades all to work. So both of those blocks will be reconstructed. That project is currently in design. Design is partially completed at this point. Now you may ask, how do we pick these projects? What goes into our thought process? There's a lot of different things that go into it. We start with the PCI, or Pavement Condition Index. And the reason we start with that, that's a purely objective measure or score, gives you an indication of what condition the street is in. It's a numeric score from 0 to 100, 100 being a perfect gravity street, 0 being dirt, basically. So with pavement preservation, we're trying to hit a sweet spot where the streets deteriorate, the curve tips over, and in a short period of time they deteriorate real rapidly. If we make an investment in streets at that point and do like our story seal program, and in essence reset that street condition back up to near 100 or 100, if we do that at regular intervals, the street is in better shape over the long haul, but it also saves us money over the long term. Because making that investment there may cost $1 per square foot. If we let the street fall completely apart and have to go in and completely reconstruct it, it's like $6 to $7 a square foot. And that's on the cheap end. The cost goes up even more depending on how big the section you have to build based on your soils. So that's where we start. We also look for a cluster of streets that have a similar PCI that fit in that category, that are at that tipping point in a neighborhood. And that's so we can do a whole neighborhood all at once with the pavement preservation effort. So we don't come in, do a few streets in your neighborhood one year, come back, next year do a few more, wait a couple of years, come back and do some more. We try to group things together so we do an entire neighborhood at once to minimize the amount of inconvenience, number one, but it also gives us some economies of scale with the contractors, keeps our prices low. We also have to coordinate with other efforts that are out there, particularly utilities, utility replacements. You know, water lines need to be replaced at certain intervals, sewer lines need some work from time to time. So we coordinate with that. The goal would be not to go in, make an investment on the street surface, and then have one of those oh no moments where now we got to go in and replace the water line. So sometimes we have to delay a project a year or two to allow that utility replacement to occur before we go in and redo the surface of the street. We also listen to our citizens and other staff members. Where do we have known problems? Where do we have issues in our system? That comes into play too as we select all of these projects. And there are different levels of effort that we have to do on streets. You've seen reconstruction on Schertz Parkway, Tri-County Parkways. We've done chip seals, which is a preservation technique in a bunch of neighborhoods. And then we've done what we call rehab in the North Cliff area. So how do we decide what application we use on a given street? Well, there are factors that come into that as well. One of them is, what type of street is it? You know, we could put a chip seal on an arterial street like Schertz Parkway, where you have a lot of driveways, a lot of turning movements, a lot of stopping, starting, and that chip seal is not going to last the service life of the chip seal. So we have to use a different product that can give us a longer service life. So we check it, select a mill and overlay for a street like that. Versus a lower volume roadway, lower volume collector and local streets, we do more of a slurry seal or chip seal type application. It's a little less costly, but we get the full service life out of that product. Sometimes, depending on cost, when we go to do what starts out as a resurfacing project or preservation project, the street we discover is in has so many base failure areas that it's actually more cost effective for us than to do a bunch of patches to patch those to shift to rehabilitation like we did in the North Cliff area. And then there are other times where we see some signs of there's really something going on in the subsurface that we can't see. We don't know what's going on, so we go out and do some geotechnical investigation, and then that tells us we don't have the right street section that we need for the traffic that street has, so we have to shift to a reconstruction category. So all of those things come into play in terms of how we select what street we're going to do, and then what treatment do we do or what effort do we have to apply to it. And that's it for my presentation.
So, thanks, John. Why don't you, just to get to know John a little bit better, John's our fantastic pavements engineer. He does a great job working with our pavements. So why don't you tell him a hobby that you have?
A hobby? Streets? I'm a self-proclaimed car nut. My wife says I'm a car addict. And I enjoy doing a sport called autocrossing. I haven't been able to do as much of it lately, but I really would like to. It's a lot of fun.
Are you still working part-time for the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I have a part-time job where I work for the Como County Constable's Office Precinct 2. So if you're up around Candy Lake on the weekends, you may see me out in my lake duty uniform patrolling the boat ramps or up the river.
Thank you, John. A man of many talents. We'll take questions at the end, sir. We'll have plenty of time for questions. Thanks, John. So next we have a budget recap and our ACE Finance Director, James Walters.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm James Walters, the Finance Director for the City of Schertz. Move pretty quickly through our budget recap, show you where we are during this fiscal year, and give you some information on some cool upcoming projects and information we have. So this was the budget the council approved last September. Overall, it was $89 million in expenses and projects. 41% of that goes to the general fund. That's the day-to-day operations of the city. That's the police, the fire, our IT department, finance. And then we have 28% going to the water and sewer fund. So every time you flush a toilet or turn on the faucet, that's where that money comes out. We have EMS funds. Our EMS is operated independently. They're their own entity. They operate as their own entity. And then the next one is sort of the green. That's our EDC, Economic Development Corporation. And then INS is the last one. That's our interest and sinking fund. That's all the debt service. That's our debt payments we make from the general fund. Also, a touch on our tax rates. This last year, we actually approved a lower tax rate than we've had the past couple of years. The tax rate we approved was 0.5121, which was down from 0.5146. This goes back to 2006, and historically, you can see the tax rate's been divided up into two separate rates. They combine to see the $1 pound tax bill. The large one, the dark orange, is the M&O. So on this, the M&O is the general fund, it's the blue portion. All the taxes raised from that go to that section. Where the lighter yellow is the INS, that goes to pay the city's debt. You can see back in 2006, compared to 2020, we have about the same M&O tax rate. But the INS has grown a little bit as we've done some bond issuances, taking bonds to the public for approval, got some debt projects in. For the budget we're in right now, for the general fund, it was about $37 million. That's about $972,000 or 2.7% increase over the prior year budget. The non-personnel dropped about 4.5%. We had fewer capital purchases. We also had a few less tax payments that we were paying out. And the personnel budgets increased 6.9%. We had our class and comp study, so wage adjustments. We had our annual wage merit program, some insurance increases, cost of living increase, and then we added 4 new positions. So those included the emergency management coordinator, a police officer, a police captain, and a senior planner for our planning department to oversee a comprehensive land use update. So if you want to know more about that, please visit our planning department in the back right corner of the facility, and they go into that in a little more detail. That's about a $400,000 project to kind of update our maps and our uses throughout the city. And we added some to our building maintenance to help us upkeep our ever-growing number of buildings we have in the city. Another highlight, we also added some one-time CIP funding or projects, new capital projects. So we added $200,000 to our street program for some more fixes, $150,000 for new trails, $100,000 for additional drainage projects, and then another $50,000 for some sidewalk projects. To give you an idea of how we're doing year to date, fees are projected to be down about $438,000 from where we had expected for budget. We're still coming out of COVID and still seeing those effects. Investment income is down as well. The federal funds rate's very much close to zero right now. A lot of our returns are based on that as a government entity. On the plus side, state aid is up $500,000, and our sales taxes, which has been great for all of this, we haven't actually seen a downturn here in the city of Schertz, still projected to be up $200,000. So overall, our revenues expect to come in higher than we had planned. On the expense side, we're expecting to be about $300,000 in savings. We are seeing some more training open back up after COVID. Has not been the case so far, but by the end of the fiscal year, by October, September, a lot of those conferences are starting to come back. We also have some personnel savings from turnover and some other savings. Overall, the city is expected to be about $500,000 better than we had thought when we completed the budget. So, looks like overall our finances are doing pretty good so far this year. We also wanted to brief you all on the second stimulus package, the American Rescue Plan. Not sure if you've heard about this, but the federal government is granting local cities with some stimulus money, some aid money. City of Schertz is expected to get about $9 million coming in from the federal government, and we have limited use on where we can put it. We can put it towards COVID response. We're going to put it towards essential worker pay, sort of hazard pay, cover revenues that were dropped because of COVID, and then make investments in water, sewer, broadband, and drainage projects. So we'll be working with council here very shortly to come up with a plan of how we're going to spend those money and which pots that $9 million is going to go into and what kind of programs we're putting together. So be on the lookout. Expect to see that coming in the next month or so. We should get half of that money now, another half later. But we'll have the first half in about 30 days or so. So it'll be very exciting. We also had the CARES money. So I'm not sure if you knew that was authorized last fiscal year, or last calendar year. The city had about $2.1 million awarded to us. We've gotten all $2.1 million back. We have about $1.3 million available for spending as of right now. And just recently, council has authorized us to go forward with the Elbell road repair using some of those funds. So very exciting. So by the August, hopefully you'll start seeing some repairs going on Elbell Road. All right, and that's what I have. And after the presentation's over, if you have any questions for finance, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thanks, James. I just want to reiterate, it's really a good news story on our finances that we came out of the pandemic in really good shape. And so not every community can say that. We particularly did good in the sales tax area, and I think H-E-B, Walmart, Lowe's really propelled us through that time, and so our future's bright financially. So James, tell us a hobby that you have.
Oh, a hobby. I like bowling, so I'm in a bowling league for the past 10 years. Not very good, but something I do enjoy.
All right, there he is, Mr. James Walters. All right, Suzanne Williams, our Public Works Director. Suzanne's been with us for about 1.5 years. And it's her opportunity to brief you all on our accomplishments in 2020 and 2021, which we're very proud of. And so Suzanne's going to take you through that.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Suzanne Williams. I'm the Director of Public Works. And I have the pleasure this evening of actually sharing accomplishments that a lot of departments have made across the city. As you can imagine, COVID highlighted some needs we had for technology, and we responded by just that. So before I start, while these cover a lot of our departments across the city, IT played a huge role in many of these because they were technology-based. Public Affairs identified we needed a refresh on our website. So they refreshed it, increased the functionality. It is active, it's the exact same web address, so it was transparent to the public, they didn't see that change. But if you go into the website, there are actually tools that I'll get into. One of those tools is Civic Ready. It's to increase our emergency correspondence, communication with our customers and residents. The neat thing about this is you can go to Schertz.com and sign up for it, but you don't have to just have a cell phone. It seems that everything nowadays you have to have a cell phone to do. You can receive emergency alerts, whether it be man-made or natural disaster, through your email, through a cell phone, or actually the historical, the landline. Finance also increased the functionality of the customer portal. The customer portal now allows you to look at your hour consumption, but also if you have some goals for your water consumption, you can enter that amount into this tool, and then you'll get alerts when you reach that threshold so you can meet your goals. The library participated in a competitive grant process. They asked for $25,000 and they received $25,000. And what this grant was for was to allow the library to purchase tools, which they did, and they implemented those tools to allow the library to actually provide services during COVID. So some of those were e-books. They also had contactless checkout, but basically, again, it allowed us to continue to serve our residents with the library. Parks also has some great accomplishments. They've been working on the Great Northern Trail. You'll notice that part of this, and by this I mean it's an 8-mile trail to connect Central Schertz to Northern Schertz. There is a section that's currently under construction right now from Schertz Parkway to Wiederstein. We have another section in design. So this is basically not just for pedestrians, it is also for cyclists, so it's a multi-use trail. They also took advantage of the time when we couldn't get out and the senior center was closed. They redid the parking lot. And by the what they did is actually make the parking lot safer. They improved the flow of the traffic. They removed some tripping hazards. They improved the lighting. It's a much better parking lot today. And they too had some technology achievements where they implemented Civic Rec software. And basically what that allows you to do is go online, there's a calendar. If you rent a pavilion, you can go find a pavilion, pay for it, rent that pavilion, or other programming efforts. EMS also participated. They applied for a competitive grant, and they received that competitive grant. What that means is that it's a revenue source for us of $900,000 annually, but it also allows us to continue to serve those in need. Public Works has undertaken some drainage projects that are a little bit new. What these drainage projects have basically done is they have desilted, redone the slopes to make it better for maintenance, also to allow for the capacity of water flow so that it doesn't have a negative detriment. But the new thing about these drainage projects is the product that's being used on some of them. This is what's called hydrant turf. And you're all familiar with the concrete drainage ditches, if you will. And this is a new product that looks like grass. And I just thought this was a neat picture to be able to show you that that centerpiece that looks like grass is actually an impervious cover so that the water does not deteriorate the slopes, but it again allows water to continue through without that concrete look. It's actually a more natural look. And engineering has also increased communication with our residents and increased the transparency of our projects. They implemented a section on our website, again, Schertz.com, for our capital improvements. And what you do is, it's a series of clicking. You click to the capital improvements area, and then you find a project. And it'll show the location of the project, and then you continue clicking, and you can learn more about that project. And so this is all online, easy to find. And keeping in line with our traditional city council meetings, I thought I'd end with COVID updates. So Summer Hall has been doing a really good job of updating every week at the city council with COVID updates, but I just wanted to highlight and recap. So there was a local disaster declaration called for on Schertz, and that was basically to allow us to protect our citizens and then also protect our employees through social distancing practices, provided us with funding for sanitation, masks, just different practices to protect us through COVID. It also expanded our capabilities to work from home, again, to protect our employees, but also so we do not have to decrease the level of service we offer to our residents. These are some numbers that are the current vaccination rates. You can see that they go across the county and they're divided by age groups. We have 50% of all those who fall in that group and over are vaccinated now in the city of Schertz. But here's the real, I think, highlight of COVID. Basically, COVID, we held employees along with volunteers held 72 clinics. That was a combination of at Schertz and then also some on-site clinics at different businesses. However, on top of that, we also gave vaccinations into homes for residents who are homebound or mobility challenged. Overall, over 35,000 vaccinations were given here in Schertz. And that's all.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, what's your hobby?
Running.
And how far do you run?
I try to run at least 4 miles when I run at once, but I can't outdo the mayor.
All right, well, very good. Thank you, Suzanne. Just a word about Suzanne. She came to us from New Braunfels Utilities, and not only does she lead the Public Works Department, but after she got here, we combined the Fleet and Facilities Department with Public Works. So she basically leads 2 departments that we had previously and is doing a great job for us there as well. All right, well that really concludes our presentations, and just we've given you quite a bit of information over the last 50 minutes or so. Now we'll open it up to questions. So what questions do you have? And we have the staff here, so we're ready to go. Yes, sir.
The road going off Old Wiederstein, what is the city going to do with that?
All right, so Old Wiederstein definitely is a major concern for us. It's obviously the traffic has overwhelmed the capacity of the road. It is on our capital improvements plan. We don't have it funded yet, but it's certainly on our plan. It's on our radar to be done in the next few years. We're hopeful. We still have to gain some right-of-way, some easements on the side there so that we can widen that, because obviously it's going to have to be widened when we get to it. So I wish I had good news that said we've got that planned and funded, but it's in our future program.
Okay, one more.
Yes, sir.
Schwab Road. So we've always been told that Schwab Road would connect into Schertz more off of 35.
So you're talking about on the
if you're driving down 35, get off at Schwab, go down, stop, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. Okay. I don't know, John, do you have some information on that section of Schwab Road?
Schwab Road is listed in our master thoroughfare plan as a roadway. I'm just trying to pull up our map here so I can make sure I tell you the right limits and everything. Schwab Road is on our master thoroughfare plan. In terms of actual improvements to Schwab Road, unfortunately, it's kind of in the same category as Old Weirstein Road. It is on our radar screen. It is a roadway that we have a defined section for. And as we see development occur along that roadway, we get the improvements, but we can't, or we're allowed to by law from the development community as they develop property. But that road actually has two different components to it, and part of the road also goes outside of our jurisdiction. So when we developed our master thoroughfare plan, we didn't just look at Schertz. We also looked at our surrounding communities where they have major roads and try to get everything going up. So if we look at Schwab Road, the long-range plans call for it to be improved to a collector roadway status, I believe. No, sorry. A secondary arterial south of I-35 that would then tie into other future collector roadway extensions. So if you look at where Country Club Boulevard is now, there'll be kind of at the end of where Country Club is right now, another kind of east-west connector that would run kind of parallel to 35. And Schwab would be a principal arterial connected down to that. And south of that, it would just be a local road. North of it, it's a principal arterial that would then tie into a principal arterial route that the city of Braunfels has planned. It's a project that's out there. It's a project that we could use our traffic impact fees to help fund, but it's also a very expensive project, right-of-way acquisition, all kinds of other things involved in it. And so it takes a while to get a project like that, get it funded and actually get it implemented. But it is part of our master thoroughfare plan.
All right, thank you.
So, unfortunately, we have a lot of roadways like that in the city that we would like to do as soon as we can. But funding is a reality that we all have to deal with, and then we have to prioritize that funding so that we make the best decisions with the resources that we have. All right, other questions? Yes, sir.
While we're dealing with roads, I'd like to address Lower Seguin.
I'll just give it that.
Lower Seguin here between 1518 and 1604. We talked about this last time we met at the fire station. With 1604 work and the 1518 work, people are going to start using that road more. And also, as 10's being worked on, you've probably noticed, if you live here, you have, when traffic backs up on 10, the route your wagon will take you is down Lower Seguin to bypass it. So you get heavy trucks and more traffic like that coming through here. So long term, that road's in pretty bad shape. And I hate to see us have to do it when everything else is being done. It's just going to compound it. But anyway, I know it's a funding issue, but I'm also looking at it from a viewpoint of timing. So just a reminder, we brought it up before, and we always will.
Yes, sir. I can appreciate that, and we know that Lower Seguin is an issue that needs to be addressed, and certainly worthy of repair. And we'll get to it as soon as we can. And we understand the concern. We know that if 1518 gets under construction, there's going to be quite a few traffic diversions and other issues that come about. Yes, sir.
Tyrone Taylor. I'll just piggyback on that a little bit, and I won't go through the entire spiel since we just heard it. But one thing I do want to point out about Lower Seguin you're driving back towards 1604, or is it the Converse area? Right when you get to the edge of the second runway, or Randolph, there's a place where the road is starting to, looks like plates are shifting, moving, and you can actually get a car to go airborne if they're traveling at speed going down there. So that's a hazard that maybe someone might want to go out and go evaluate to see where it falls in the list of priorities, if there's some work that needs to be done there. And hey, who knows, maybe we get to fix North Seguin Road, Congress will want to pitch in on a party because they won't go on their side of the left.
Thank you, I appreciate that. As we said, Lower Seguin is a priority for us.
So 2 questions, again, on Lower Seguin, but just right here at the light, there's the going up when you turn off 1518 either direction, there's a lot of potholes. Where can we report those, or is that something that's being worked on? And then question 2, on the budget, they said something about the CARES money and the other money that was coming in, the rescue plan. You know, is there more info on how that money is going to be dispersed and kind of a timeline on that? And we'll have to post it on the website or anything like that.
Well, thank you. So the first question, we'll go out and look at those potholes, okay? And we'll see what we can do about those potholes. As regards to the second question, on the American Rescue Plan, so we're getting $9 million, getting $4.5 million. We expect that to come to us in the next 30 days. That's the first tranche. The next tranche will be about a year from now. So what we're doing, what we're going to be doing with the City Council is having a workshop to discuss the various areas that we can spend those monies and how to allocate that. So the initial guidance from the council was that we want to put money in every one of those categories to the extent that we can. So now it's a question of how much money are we going to put into each category, and then translate that into execution. So yes, there'll be information put out on how we're going to spend the money and when we're going to spend that money and all those kinds of things. So we'll give it transparency for sure. Other questions?
I'd just like to thank the city for the COVID response and what you did for the community, having your employees, and just great attitude and great service. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I want to give credit to Mayor Gutierrez and his wife Raquel. They did a great job coordinating our volunteers. They went right to work. Did a fantastic job getting the huge numbers of volunteers. Each of those clinics probably had 50 to 70 volunteers, staff and community volunteers in those clinics to run them. So I really appreciate that comment. I'm thankful for the great work the staff did this summer. Why don't you stand up? Summer Hall did a fantastic job with our lead staff person. And the thing about Summer is she's always in motion. I never see Summer sitting still. She's always got something going on, and she just does a fantastic job. So thank you very much for that. And I think, from those of us who participated in those clinics, it was a life-changing experience. I mean, we really all came away from that, with a greater appreciation for all the things that the city does. So thank you.
You came into our area as well. We're Scenic Hills. So you came into our area, we're seniors, 55 and older, and y'all had, I think, about 45 or 50 come in to our, our lodge and administer the shots to the seniors. Thank you.
Well, that's great. And so again, Summer and the fire department also did a fantastic job. Kate Long, the fire chief, couldn't be with us tonight. He was also instrumental in this. And one of the great things was we were able to go out into the community and give these clinics. So we did that numerous times. And I think every time somebody asked, we were willing to go out and help out that way. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Will the city work with the Boy Scouts to put up the flags for the 4th of July?
So the flags for the 4th of July, we're getting ready to address those, and we're going to work with the Parks Department on that. So I'm not going to promise exactly what we're going to do, but we're still working on that program. We need a lot of volunteers because
Just ask.
it's, that would be great. If we could get people.
The city got a lot of publicity.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It
wasn't
was. People
It was
came
beautiful.
from San Antonio to drive Schertz Parkway.
That was a
Yes.
beautiful exhibit, so thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? Okay, well, Mayor, do you want to have any closing remarks?
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to our staff for providing for our community and our residents. Really do appreciate it, especially summer. You made a big impact in our community with the COVID-19. Thank you so much. As you saw, there's a lot going on. We went through a small little crisis here, the pandemic, and our city has bounced back very, very strong. And we look forward to the coming year and our budget meetings and see how we're going to spend the American Relief Act funds that we received. And thank you all for showing up here. And you have a nice night. And I would say by next week we'll know where we're spending those funds. So, all right. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Okay, the time is 7:36. We stand adjourned.